Coco. A petite woman with a sad look on her face, small afro, and warm, hazel eyes speaks up. Hello, everyone. I am Coco, with a shaky voice. She takes a deep breath before continuing. I've been longing for a place where I can be myself, pour my heart out without fear of judgment. A place where I feel love and respect, where I can laugh and cry. I pray that this is that place. Coco pauses, collecting her thoughts. I am 28 years old, a single mother to an amazing 3-year-old boy named Chance. He's the light of my life. I have a great job, but what I'm missing is, well, that's what I want to talk about. She takes a moment to settle in, getting comfortable before launching into her story. A little over 4 years ago, I felt stuck. I was fed up with my job and my lifestyle. I saw an ad in the newspaper for my dream job as a flight attendant. It seemed glamorous and exciting, the chance to meet new people, travel the world. As I read that ad, I knew it was time for an adventure. The opening interviews would start in 30 minutes, and once they began, the doors would be closed. I sat on my bed, tears streaming down my face. But 10 minutes later, I wiped my tears, touched up my makeup, and put on my best suit. I knew this job was for me. I could feel it in my soul. Coco's voice fills with determination as she recounts her journey to the interview. I drove to the hotel, parked my car, and walked up to the ballroom that was listed in the newspaper. The room was empty. I had missed the first interviews. Without hesitation, I walked to the front desk. I asked for the name of the person in charge of the interview. The clerk smiled and told me it was Miss Stoutgard. I smiled back, thanked her, and asked where the house phones were. She pointed and said around the corner. I walked over to the phones, feeling brave and determined. Before I could overthink it, I picked up the phone, dialed the operator, and asked for Miss Stoutgard's room, please. A woman with a strong German accent answered. I pretended I had an interview scheduled with her, but didn't know where to go. She said, I hadn't realized they'd scheduled my first interview so soon. She told me to give her 10 minutes, then come up to room 1004. I hung up the phone in shock. It worked. I knew this job was for me, and I felt like God had made a way for me. Coco laughs, a joyful sound of laughter that fills the room. I waited, and after 10 minutes, I knocked on her door. 30 minutes later, I left feeling immensely proud of myself. Miss Stoutgard informed me that 158 people had applied for 7 positions with the airline. The job was based in New York City's JFK Airport, and applicants would be notified in 7 to 10 days. Well, I was one of the 7. 20 days later, I left for New York City with $2,000 in my pocket. After 6 weeks of flight school, passing all my exams, the friendly skies called my name. Oh, by the way, did I mention it was an international airline? Yes, my life did change. I traveled to Zurich, Sweden, Paris, London, and Greece, and that's where I met him. Nick. Coco's voice takes on a dreamy quality as she describes Nick. He was tall, dark-haired, with olive skin, an extremely attractive man. Let me tell you how we met. Greece was my 3rd flight, but my first international. The other 2 had been state-to-state MAC flights. On all international flights, newbies like me were assigned a roommate and a buddy who was a more seasoned flight attendant. Out of the 10 seasoned attendants, my roommate and buddy was Gwen. She was tall and thin, with thick black-framed glasses and brown hair pulled back into a bun. She seemed nice but noticeably quiet. After the flight landed and we reached the hotel, I began to relax. Once we got into our room, Gwen disappeared into the bathroom. I looked through my luggage to find that I had packed nothing suitable for the sunny, 110-degree weather in Greece. I sat on the bed, staring into space, when the bathroom door opened. Gwen looked nothing like the woman who went in 20 minutes ago. She had beautiful, flowing brown hair, no glasses, and wore a sexy, clinging white mini dress. She was breathtaking, a model from head to toe. Coco's eyes light up as she imitates Gwen's French accent. She told me in a French-sounding voice, I am meeting my friend and I will see you in 6 days. She looked at what you packed, and said, my friend, you can borrow some of my clothes. She went through her suitcase and pulled out 2 pairs of shorts, a couple of wife-beater tees, and 2 sundresses. I thanked her, and off she went. I showered and put on a tee and a pair of shorts that came down to my knees and were baggy. I threw on 3 strands of pearls, sandals, and created a spiky hairdo. I looked international. I decided to head to the hotel bar, hoping to find some company. I sat down at the bar and looked around, trying to decide what to drink. Just then, the bartender came over and said, hello, my name is Tony. I said, hello, my name is Coco. Well, he said, I have a friend who is sitting at the other end of the bar. He would like to buy you a drink. His name is Nick. I looked towards the end of the bar and said, sure. Tony smiled and said, what would you like? A vodka martini straight up with 2 olives and make it dirty, please. Tony laughed and said, all right, Bond girl. I laughed too. Tony made my drink and returned with a martini in a beautiful, smoky glass and said my friend would like to join you. I said why not, yes, I need the company. Coco's voice fills with excitement as she describes meeting Nick. As Nick walked towards me, I could have fallen off my chair. I had never seen a man like this. His voice was deep and raspy. As I looked into his eyes, I melted inside, thinking what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man. We had a couple of drinks while talking about our day and whether I liked being a flight attendant. Nick said, would you like to join me for dinner, Coco? Not even thinking, a strange man, strange place, I said, yes. He said, we can have dinner in the hotel so you can feel comfortable, and we can only think of each other. He held out his hand, and I placed my hand gently in his hand, careful not to seem too desperate. We took the elevator to the roof. The elevator opened, and a sky full of stars said hello. A beautiful rooftop restaurant. Being a newbie, I had not realized that this was a 4-star hotel. We were seated in a quiet corner, with a view of the ocean waves kissing the sandy beach below. The combination of smells, the ocean, and his cologne put me in a trance. For a moment, I forgot he was there. He allowed me time to just enjoy my surroundings. He did not talk much. At times, he would just look into my eyes and smile. He called my name and said, I want you to take in the beauty of my city. I am just along to protect you and see to all your needs. That night was wonderful, and Nick was the perfect gentleman. As we said good night, I told him that I have an 8-day layover here. He said that he would be leaving in the morning for a 3-day business trip and would call me when he returns. The next morning, Coco finds herself alone again. I got dressed and went outside, looked over to my right, and what do you know, there was an outdoor restaurant. I saw some of the crew sitting there. My first thought was that I had very little money and needed to watch my spending. After sharing a meal and getting to know them, I felt better about being a newbie. One of the senior attendants, Blake, arranged for his girlfriend and his brother to have their vacation in Greece. His brother Sam seemed to be a nice guy, and I could tell he liked black women. Oh, just a note, the only time I saw a black person during my 8-day layover was when I looked in the mirror. Coco hears Blake making plans. I heard Blake say, I will meet you guys in the lobby in 2 hours. Everyone got up, and so did I. I started walking up the steps of the hotel, and Sam ran up to me and said we are all touring the islands and spending a few days at a resort on Mykonos. Would you like to join me? I laughed and said I really do not have the money for that. Sam smiled and said you do not need a dime. I will pay for everything, no strings attached, and I don't want to be a third wheel with my brother and his girlfriend. Thinking to myself, I have always been a free spirit, so why the hell not? Sure, Sam, I would love to. Okay, the water ferry leaves in 2.5 hours. I will meet you in the lobby in 2 hours. Coco's eyes sparkle as she recounts her adventure with Sam. I ran to my room and prepared for the time of my life. 3 days and nights of island cruises, skinny dipping in the Mediterranean, dining on the beach, enjoying a cold shower with Sam. It was 110 degrees at the time, cold felt great, leaping into bed without drying off and making mad passionate love each day. I was the one who made the advances. It had been over a year since I had the company of a man, and I needed that.
Coco looks up at the faces of the women and says well, prompting laughter and words of encouragement from the group. C speaks up, saying, no judgment in this room, open and release. As we gathered at the dock on the fourth morning, ready to catch water taxis back to Athens, Sam and I found ourselves the last ones waiting. When a taxi finally arrived, the driver refused to take us together. Sam suggested we take separate taxis, but I was hesitant. Something didn't feel right. But Sam, clearly upset, insisted. So I agreed and boarded the waiting water taxi. As we pulled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Back at the hotel, I waited anxiously in the lobby for Sam to arrive. Just as he walked in, the senior flight attendant Carol rushed over. Please, do not try to see Sam for the rest of your stay here, she warned. I was taken aback. Nick is back, and he knows you went to the islands with another man. Sam needs to stay with me for his safety. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I laughed, stunned. What? But before I could process anything further, Carol had whisked Sam away. I walked back to my room in a daze, my mind reeling. And then the phone rang. My heart sank as I heard Nick's voice on the other end. I forced myself to sound normal, to play it cool. He told me he had cut his trip short and wanted to see me. I agreed to meet him for dinner, trying to push aside the growing sense of unease. When I opened my closet to get ready, I was shocked to find it filled with expensive outfits, shoes, and jewelry. Nick must have had someone let themselves into my room to see what sizes I wore. It was strange and unsettling, but I pushed it aside. I chose an outfit and waited for the car he had promised to send. The next few days were a whirlwind of whining and dining. Nick was charming and attentive, and despite the strange circumstances, he never brought it up, and neither did I. I found myself swept up in the romance of it all. By the fourth day, I felt like I was walking on air. Nick told me we would see each other as often as possible, and I couldn't help but feel like I had found something special. Our relationship continued for over a year. Nick would fly me to see him whenever he had business in Canada, and we would spend long weekends together. It was like living in a dream world. And then, on one of those weekends in Montreal, Nick proposed. I said yes, of course. I was on cloud nine. But as the days passed, I began to notice strange things. I would catch glimpses of men in suits watching me. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia, but the feeling only grew stronger. And then I overheard Nick on the phone, his voice low and menacing. Suddenly, the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Nick was involved with the mob. I felt sick to my stomach, and my whole world turned upside down. I knew I had to get out, but I was too scared to confront Nick. So I told him I needed to go home and visit my mother, and he let me go. As soon as I returned to the States, I packed up my things, left New York, and went home to my mother's house. I was exhausted and sick, unable to eat or sleep. And then I started to suspect that I was pregnant. My sister took me to the doctor, and when he told me I was 12 weeks along, I felt like my world was crashing down. I knew I had to deal with Nick, but I was terrified. I avoided his calls and my mother's questions. I was unsure of what to do. But as the days turned into weeks, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. So I called Nick. He immediately asked when I was coming back, and I hesitated. I told him, I'm not sure, and then he dropped a bombshell. What about the baby, Coco? My heart stopped. How did he know? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I just hung up the phone, my mind racing. I called my father, the only person I could think of to turn to. I told him everything, and he listened in stunned silence. He's in the mob, Coco, he told me when I finally ran out of words. He must have had you followed. I don't think he can come to the States, but you need to be careful. Send everything back, the ring, the money, everything. Have an abortion and pray he lets you be. His words were harsh, but I knew he was right. So I quit my job with the airline and advised my roommates that I would not be returning. I sent everything back, along with a letter telling Nick about the baby and that I had terminated the pregnancy. I begged for his forgiveness and asked him to let me live my life in peace. And then I waited, my heart heavy with fear. But as the months passed, people could see that I did not have an abortion. I hadn't been able to go through with it. And when my baby boy was born, healthy and perfect, I knew I had made the right decision. I named him Chance, because that's what I had taken, a chance that everything would be okay. Years went by, and I heard nothing from Nick or his family. I assumed they had moved on, left us alone. But then, 2 months ago, I received a letter from a lawyer's office. My heart was in my throat as I went to meet with him. That's when I learned that Nick was dead, killed in a boating accident. And he had known about Chance all along. He had been watching us from afar, but had let us be. His family knew his wishes and respected them. The lawyer told me that Nick had provided for Chance in his will. There was a trust set up in his name, enough to take care of him through college and beyond. The family wouldn't approach me, but they hoped I would let them have a relationship with Chance. I was reeling, unsure of what to do. And now, as I sit here, I'm still trying to process it all. I'm grateful that Nick left us alone, that we've been safe these years. But the thought of his family in our lives again, they wanted to know Chance. It's terrifying. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'll do whatever it takes to protect my son. Coco, look around the room at the supportive faces of these women. I hope someday I can come to call all of you friends. I know I'm not alone, not anymore. I'll navigate this new reality, one day at a time. Because that's what mothers do. We take chances, we face our fears, and we keep moving forward, no matter what life throws our way.